Hi, everybody. This is Dr. Gregory, and I want to welcome you all to the class. Now, this is a quick 4-week class that will give you the basics of understanding research in the field of accounting. We're going to cover 4 different topics. We're going to look first at just general accounting research. We'll dive into tax research. We'll look at fraud research, my personal favorite. And finally, we're going to look at financial analysis and evaluation. Now, each week I'm going to be providing you with a video on how to prepare and what to cover in your assignments. So I hope it does help. Now, just another little comment before I dive into this. This class is about researching and writing. So we kind of give pretty much equal treatment to both. We want your writing to be professional, technical, meaning using the right words as accountants. And we also want it to be grammatically correct, good format and form, and especially working with citations and references in your work. So these things are going to be looked at. They're going to be graded. So don't be surprised if you have a really great discussion, but maybe your citations and references aren't in the best order. We're going to learn how to do that. So let's get to this. You know, research in accounting is really fascinating field. At one time, I was considering going to work for the FASB on the East Coast in their research department because I really wanted to know how and why standards were being developed or changed. What was motivating these changes? Who was providing the input? Who was doing all that work necessary to write those huge standards we get the pleasure of reading today? So back in my day, standards didn't change as fast as they do today. Now it seems we're facing so many unique conditions in our profession that part of our work really is mandated through research. About a third of my time is spent doing some type of research into some type of topic, because today, you know, all bets are off as far as what we could be looking at that could affect accounting in any type of situation. Therefore, it's important that we begin to understand how to research and where to research. Now, for me, research means that I have to keep an open mind on the topic. Oftentimes, we find ourselves being asked a question, and sometimes it's expected that we have that answer right away. Well, that's not really the case anymore. I mean, how many of us can rattle off research around cryptocurrency, or what do we do in investigations? That's pretty impossible anymore. So instead, when we are researching, we need to put our personal biases and feelings aside and let the research do the talking. Oftentimes, when we answer a question quickly, we are relying on personal experiences, which have some merit, but it also includes biases and our preconceived notions on how things should be. We want the research to tell us and to guide us what to do. And sometimes that's going to take a little bit of patience, and we'll get into that. I want to give you an example of something I was faced with. I worked in a government setting, a county agency, and was asked by my director, why can't we give people who pay us in cash or pay the full amount in a credit card an upfront discount? Other companies do it. Sometimes Lowe's will do it. Sometimes Home Depot does it. Sometimes companies that you work for, your vendors, your suppliers may offer you a discount to pay early or to pay using cash or credit card. So why can't we do that too in government? Isn't government just like a great big business? We often align ourselves to government is just a different sort of business entity. It was a really interesting question. My director kind of wanted an answer right away, and I had to step back because my first blush would have been, that's kind of a cool idea. Why don't we run with that and see what happens? But I had to step back and let my director know that I needed to really research this idea out and get back to him. So I said, give me a week. Let me find out what I can find out. So I'm back at my office, and I thought of all the possible areas in our county agency that this might pertain to. I worked in building and land permits. So where could we utilize that? Sometimes not in land permitting or large construction, because those are multiple year projects, but maybe in an area such as a quick building or renovation permit, a demolition permit. I think we used to have to get a permit to add or remove a fireplace. So when we were thinking about that, I thought, well, those are kind of quick cash items. Maybe that's an area that this could benefit from. So I decided to look at it. And my journey started reading the county municipal code. That's the laws and the regulation and the legislation that the county adopts that guides them on how we conduct our business. And I tried to see if there was any legislation regarding that topic. Not really. A lot of good, interesting information, but I didn't find any agencies that were doing this type of process. The municipal code is broken out by different agencies as well as the overall governing body. So you kind of have to look in a few areas. So after that, I decided, well, maybe I should look at the federal level, because county governments, states, parishes, municipalities, towns, etc., get their basis of their laws from federal law. So off to these different sites on what I could find on federal law. Well, I did find some things about not this discount per se, but working with uncollectible debts. And in uncollectible debts, we don't ever write off a bad debt in government agencies. So I said, well, it's kind of a start, not really showing me what I want, but it's a good place. So I then went back to local research, and I thought to myself, well, maybe other agencies do this throughout the state. So I started looking at policies of other counties and cities, large cities like the city I worked in, to see if anybody was doing any form of business like that, to give me another area. Well, off to those local jurisdictions. Didn't really find it, but then again, I talked to a lot of agencies that really never thought about that before. So now I had to go into other areas of research. Now, the FASB is the Financial Accounting Standards Board, and you're going to be messing around in that codification quite a bit. But this wasn't a regular company. This was the government. So I had to go to the Governmental Accounting Standards Board, GASB, and see if I could find anything on that. And in my research and digging around, it led me to a topic of the prohibition of gifting citizens. Bingo! It didn't come right out and hit me on the head, but I was able to find this type of information. And this gave me what I needed to know about discounts, and that those discounts actually result in a gift of public funds. You see, the discount would have represented a gift of public money because we wouldn't be collecting it from them. So it's kind of like a gift to them. But we would be collecting the full amount of any time the citizen wanted to be billed on a monthly basis for their goods and services. And I thought, well, it states very clear, you cannot gift public funds. There is no gifting involved. And I went back to my municipal code and started looking at that area of research. Lo and behold, we do not write off bad debts because bad debts, in a way, are a gift of public funds. Bad debts must stay in governments in perpetuity. Okay, this was starting to come together. Now, this probably took all of a week to get together. I've done a lot of research in the past, so I kind of knew where I needed to at least start. And that was in between all my other duties as a fiscal administrator for that agency. I oversaw all of the accounting and finance of that agency. But when I presented my research, which was fairly large and fairly in-depth, and the recommendation, which was no, we can't give a discount because it's a gift of public funds. While my director really wasn't happy about the outcome, he understood my rationale, he understood my recommendation, and he understood that the research that I did as thoroughly as I could backed it all up. So we can see research can be a bit overwhelming and a bit daunting. And sometimes you really don't know where to start, but you kind of have to dive in with some keywords, key phrases, and see what you find out. Now, we're going to learn this week that different categories of accountants require different ways of researching. Tax accountants have a lot of different issues than the internal auditors or the internal accountants, than corporate auditors and accountants. It's different investigating fraud, as well as looking into researching about nonprofits, NGOs, government entity. And so this class is going to give you some exposure into most of those areas. Like I said, we have 4 major areas we're going to look at. And this week, as you begin your process, think of the internet as a sandbox. Play around. Most of the time in this class, you're going to be looking at the FASB codification and other areas within your class resources as your main areas of research. But you may have to expand upon some of that and go out to other research sites. So in this first week, take some time, go into the FASB codification, get familiar with the layout. It's usually laid out by topic number, and topic numbers usually run in the same way that we think of a chart of accounts. Codification levels at 100 usually mean assets, 200 liabilities, 300 equity, 400 revenues, 500 expenses. You get the idea, right? So try searching on a couple of general topics, such as inventory or goodwill or debt securities. The site's a little confusing at first, so be patient with it and see what you can figure out. One comment I want to make about research is that research is about finding credible sites and sources. How embarrassing would it have been if I just gone along with my director, or I Googled the first thing in my bias that helped confirm that we could do this? I could have gotten in all sorts of trouble, and so could the agency. While the idea of discounts was a really enticing topic, getting our money faster so that we had better cash flow and reduced receivables was what a great idea is that? Wouldn't we all love that? It would have violated state and federal laws. And we never want to be in that position of giving the wrong recommendation to senior management who rely on us as the experts. So in this vein, I want to talk about sources that are not acceptable. Please do not use them in any condition or circumstances. And I'll name these off, but you can play this over again and listen to it. And I believe it's in the faculty expectations, but sources that are not acceptable: Wikipedia, Investopedia, Technopedia, Motley Fool, course sites such as myaccountingcoach.com, Cron.com, which is a subsidiary of the Houston Chronicle, Course Hero, Scrib. Get the idea? Some of these are open source sites that anyone can dump any kind of information on. And they haven't been vetted by credible experts. Now, some sites such as Oracle, SAP, they may sound really good because they're accounting software sites, but remember, they're sales sites and they're only interested in selling you a product. Oh, no H&R Block or QuickBooks either. Sounds like a lot, huh? So here are the sites that I am going to accept in this class. Any source identified in your class resources, such as the FASB codification. The Internal Revenue Service. You are really going to be looking at that when you start looking at your taxation research. So again, play around in the www.irs.gov site. CPA sites are acceptable, such as such as information coming from Deloitte, PricewaterhouseCoopers, E&Y, maybe some regional firms such as Moss Adams CPAs. Make sure, though, they are reputable CPA sites and not sites that are selling you their services or wanting you to service. CorporateFinanceInstitute.com, all one word. That will also give you some good basis of information, such as ratio analysis and different types of terminology that we use in accounting. Don't be afraid of using that. And I consider it a really, really good source of information. Scholarly journals. Look at the Journal of Accountancy, the Journal of Taxation, the Journal of Tax Practices, etc. And other resources such as the AICPA or the PCAOB, IFRS, Institute of Internal Auditors, the Association of Certified Fraud Examiners, the National Association of Tax Professionals, etc. Those are acceptable sites. They may not be scholarly, but they set standards. They interpret laws for us, and they're considered works from experts in the field. As I said, federal sources, Internal Revenue Service, court statutes and cases, especially for taxation. Textbooks can be used, but use them with a lot of caution. If you're using an old edition of a textbook, an old textbook may have old information in it. So be sure that if you're using a textbook, that you use the latest edition that's published out there. Now, be sure your information, especially if you are looking at legal cases, at tax laws, at tax requirements, is current when citing processes that are currently in place. Those processes are sources that don't really change, we call seminal work, and that can be acceptable too. For example, if you're going to look up the fraud triangle to get an idea of what the fraud triangle is about, even though that's a source that goes all the way back to the 30s, we still consider it acceptable source because it's seminal, it's groundbreaking. So my advice this week, immerse yourself in the research. Think of it as an Easter egg hunt. You might be surprised at what you find. Have a great week. See you in the classroom and reach out if you have questions. Bye for now.